I love this painting, the kindness, the loving person that she was. That's all I got is our memories and this photo of my child. It's certain pictures make you cry. It's good memories. She's on my mind the first thing I wake up in the morning. The first thing thought that's in my mind is her, Shanquella.
All six of them had an opportunity to stop that situation. Neither one of them didn't do nothing about it. Who give them the right to take a life? He didn't give her no kind of care, no help. I can just feel her suffering, man. The last breath she took out of her body.
It's hard, but I want the world to see it. I want everything to come out because I want justice for my child.
A mother who's lost her child while justice hasn't been served, I've come to learn, has nothing better to do than to make sure it's coming. She'll pour every ounce of grief into purpose, building pressure until the truth can't be ignored. Shanquella Robinson's mother is not waiting around anymore. Are you familiar with the brutality that ended Salamandra's daughter's life? Her name was Shanquella Robinson, and she was betrayed in a way that isn't usual, which makes the crime a unique crime, but the fact that there have been no arrests for the crime itself is probably the most unique thing to it, mostly because there was online evidence that supported the injuries that this beautiful woman sustained. Additionally, there were 6 people there that saw everything happen to Shanquella, and so far, they've remained united under excuses and lies to avoid responsibility. 6 people. So, Salamandra has recently filed a wrongful death lawsuit that we're going to visit today through her attorney. But then I want to visit some other documents shortly after because this is going to give us a solid picture based on these documents on what happened. Though the case has been covered in the past by many others, you don't see the coverage on it nearly enough anymore because it's been a waiting game for over 2 years to determine what was going to happen to these 6 people after the fate of Shanquella.
It's not going to bring back Shanquella Robinson, but it's that I know that the FBI should have been done something at this time, after 2 years ago. I know a lot of stuff that was in the phones of Shanquella Robinson that I gave to the FBI, and the FBI looked over it like it was nothing. And you know, and just like you just pushed my daughter up under the rug when you should have been arrested these people. You had a video where she was being brutally beaten, but you want to mess with the autopsy and say that she did not have a broken back or spine when the FBI are deliberately lying because someone had, attorney had already, not my attorney, but attorney had already told me don't let the FBI mess with that autopsy, that they were going to switch it around. And that's exactly what they did.
So the document will explain what happened, and then we're going to talk about this video that surfaced, and I'm going to show you a graphic image of what the Mexico autopsy report says happened to Shanquella's neck. It's very important to see it because for some unknown reason, the U.S. did an autopsy of their own after Shanquella's body was returned to the U.S., and they said that the results were undetermined. It's frustrating. There remains to this day contradicting autopsy reports and then contradicting statements from the only people who really know what happened to Shanquella against the 2 autopsy reports, one from the US, one from Mexico. Like the answers are all different. To this day, the results of the 2 autopsy reports contradict each other as well. So the crime happened in Mexico. However, you can see here on the affidavit that the state of North Carolina is where this lawsuit was filed.
Now, Shanquella's mother is suing Amani Green, Elise Hyatt, Malik Dyer, Winter Donovan, Khalil Cook, Nazir Tyree Wiggins, United States Department of State, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Shanquella Robinson was a vibrant and driven 25-year-old who had already established herself as a remarkable entrepreneur and a beloved community member. As a proud college student, she pursued her degree with dedication and passion, embodying the spirit of hard work and perseverance. In addition to her business endeavors, she had a special talent for braiding hair, particularly for children. This skill allowed her to build strong relationships with families in her community because she offered a service that brought confidence and joy to young clients. Her gentle demeanor and creativity made her a favorite among kids and parents. Shanquella was also a cheerleader known for her infectious enthusiasm and dedication to her team. Her spirited nature and leadership skills were evident in every aspect of her life, inspiring those around her to strive for the best. Tragically, her life was cut short, leaving a profound impact on her community and loved ones. She is remembered not only for her accomplishments and excitement for travel, but also her kindness, positivity, and the light she brought to the lives of so many. The Cabo 6 defendants were believed to be friends of the descendant, Shanquella Robinson. Khalil Cook, knowing Shanquella the longest and best, invited her to join the Cabo 6 defendants on what was supposed to be a fun and safe luxury vacation in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, in October of 2022. Shanquella was invited to attend the trip to Mexico at the last minute because other guests declined or otherwise canceled their plans to join. When she arrived at the villa in Mexico on or about October 28, 2022, Shanquella spoke with her mother, Salamandra Robinson. Neither Shanquella nor her mother knew that this call would be their last conversation. On or about October 29th, 2022, defendant Dejanay brutally attacked Shanquella Robinson in one of the bedrooms at the villa. Defendant Dejanay repeatedly punched Shanquella in the face, head, neck, and other parts of her body. During the attack, Shanquella was nude, completely exposed, and unable to respond or defend herself. Still, defendant Dejanay tossed Shanquella around the room in the presence of the other Cabo 6 defendants. Not one of the other Cabo 6 defendants intervened to assist Shanquella while defendant Dejanay's violent and relentless attack persisted. Not one of the Cabo 6 defendants attempted to contact law enforcement during the attack. Instead, the members of the Cabo 6 defendants reveled at the spectacle and recorded the incident that would be shared later on social media. Multiple members of the Cabo 6 defendants can be seen watching the brutal attack with phones and heard yelling at Shanquella, not defendant Dejanay. The attack continued for several minutes. Upon information and belief, defendant Winter FaceTimed defendant Dejanay's boyfriend so he could watch the attack. Upon information and belief, defendant Dejanay's boyfriend cheered her on as she continued to strike Shanquella. Upon information and belief, there was nothing Shanquella could have done to warrant this fatal attack. No one tried to console or help Shanquella with her severe and apparently painful injuries. When members of the Cabo 6 defendants finally called the villa concierge, hours later, they requested medical personnel to get Shanquella hydrated and implied she needed to be treated for alcohol poisoning. Shanquella was not verbally responsive and was lethargic prior to the doctor arriving upon the scene. Defendant Khalil contacted Salamandra Robinson advising that Shanquella had alcohol poisoning and that the Cabo 6 defendants were going to put her in the shower. When the doctor arrived, Shanquella was unable to advocate for her own medical treatment or advise the doctor that she had been beaten because her injuries rendered her unable to speak. None of the Cabo 6 defendants provided any information to the doctor about the brutal attack. The Cabo 6 defendants continuously told the doctor that Shanquella was sick from drinking too much alcohol and did not need to be transported to the local hospital for immediate medical attention. After taking Shanquella's vitals, it became clear to the doctor that Shanquella needed more than hydration. The doctor implored the Cabo 6 defendants to authorize Shanquella's immediate transportation to the hospital and notified her supervisor when the Cabo 6 defendants indicated they would not provide authorization. Her vital signs were dangerously abnormal. The Cabo 6 defendants insisted that Shanquella only be treated with fluids for alcohol poisoning. The doctor repeatedly requested authorization from the Cabo 6 defendants to transport Shanquella via ambulance to the hospital because her vital signs were weakening. Furthermore, the doctor provided information about local public hospitals and could treat Shanquella at no cost. The Cabo 6 defendants refused. Defendant Khalil never told Salamandra Robinson that Shanquella was dying, was violently attacked by defendant Dejanay, or otherwise unsafe. Instead, defendant Khalil insisted that Shanquella was merely dehydrated and needed an IV. At all times during the final moments of Shanquella's life, Salamandra Robinson was unable to communicate directly with Villa staff, local law enforcement, or medical personnel to get the truth of her daughter's condition. The doctor requested help from the Cabo 6 defendants so she could attempt resuscitation. Defendant Malik remained in the room while all of the other members of the Cabo 6 defendants left. When Shanquella no longer had a pulse, the doctor called 911 to notify law enforcement that emergency services were needed. 3 emergency medical service providers arrived at the villa, including the Mexican Red Cross. All 3 ambulance agencies confirmed that Shanquella could not be transported to the hospital at this point because she no longer had any measurable vital signs. Shanquella was pronounced deceased at the villa in the presence of medical personnel and all of the Cabo 6 defendants on October 29th of 2022. According to the autopsy report, Shanquella's cause of death was a spinal cord injury and atlas luxation. Police officers arrived to prepare the necessary paperwork to take Shanquella's body to the morgue. During his interview with law enforcement, defendant Khalil claimed Shanquella got the bruises on her head and arms from a fall in the pool. At no point during the interview did he inform law enforcement of defendant Dejanay's violent attack on Shanquella. Furthermore, defendant Khalil never told the doctor or any responding physicians that Shanquella fell in the pool. Shortly after law enforcement arrived at the villa, the Cabo 6 defendants packed their belongings and requested transportation to get dinner. And you guys, this is the worst part. Defendant Dejanay Jackson and defendant Khalil, these 2, took Shanquella's belongings and suitcase with them when they exited the villa. Nobody checked out. Essentially, they just left. They decided to tell the driver to take them to a hotel near the airport. The Cabo 6 defendants returned to the United States the next morning, a full day ahead of schedule, without disclosing the attack or the injuries sustained by Shanquella to the Mexican authorities. When the Cabo 6 defendants arrived in North Carolina, each of the defendants worked in concert to conceal information about the facts and circumstances of Shanquella's death from her family and law enforcement. And again, with these 2, defendant Dejanay and defendant Khalil went to Salamandra Robinson's home and returned Shanquella's suitcase. In Salamandra's home, while she was grieving the loss of her child, defendant Dejanay and defendant Khalil offered their condolences for Shanquella passing from, quote-unquote, alcohol poisoning.
Now, Miss Salamandra's prayer for relief is the entry of judgment against Amani Green, aka Dejanay Jackson, in the favor of the plaintiff for count 1 wrongful death in the amount of $2 million, the entry of judgment against Amani Green, formerly known as Dejanay Jackson, in favor of the plaintiff for count 2 battery in the amount of $2 million, the entry of judgment against each of the Cabo 6 defendants in the favor of plaintiff for count 3 negligence in an amount of $400,000 per defendant, defendant, the entry of judgment against each of the Cabo Six in the favor of plaintiff for count 4, civil conspiracy in the amount of $400,000 per defendant. The next entry of judgment against the Cabo Six is count number 5, intentional infliction of emotional distress in an amount of $400,000 per defendant. And last but not least, the entry of judgment against each of the Cabo Six for count number 6, negligent infliction of emotional distress in an amount of $400,000 per defendant.
That Friday evening, she seemed very excited about the trip, and she said she was getting ready to eat some tacos. They had a chef there. And I said, okay, love you. I will talk to you tomorrow. Enjoy yourself. And I never spoke with my child again.
Not even 24 hours after her daughter landed in Paradise, Salamandra says she got a worrying call from one of the friends who told her Shanquella wasn't feeling well.
And I said, well, what's wrong with her? And he said, alcohol poisoning. I didn't know what alcohol poisoning was, But he said, the doctor is on the way. And I said, well, how you know alcohol poisoning if the doctor haven't arrived yet? He said he was sorry that Shanquella had passed.
He said it just like that?
Just like that. He wasn't even emotionally upset or nothing about it. And I say, well, it was nothing I could do. It's just my heart just crumbled, because I couldn't even get to my child. She's 2,000 miles away.
Local Mexican authorities later releasing the police report stating the cause of death as cardiac arrest. Salamandra says days later, the friends returned to the States after their vacation. But as the family grieved, Salamandra says she received a disturbing call.
I got a call from somebody, I didn't even know who it was, and they said that they was over there fighting that girl. And that's the way they left it, just like that.
So someone just called you, said that, and then hung up?
And hung up. So they was over there fighting her. I don't know why they keep talking about alcohol poison.
Salamandra telling us she confronted the friends about that call when they visited her at home in Charlotte, North Carolina.
They was crying and say they never had a fight. They even sit here and say they was picking out what they was wearing to the funeral. They sit down here and we was talking about what colors we was gonna wear and what we was gonna do, and they sit here and say, pick out what they was wearing to the funeral. When they called me and the autopsy came back, it all made sense.
According to the death certificate from Mexico, the 25-year-old died from a severe spinal cord injury and atlas luxation, a dislocated neck. There was no mention of alcohol or cardiac arrest, and the approximate time of death was at 3 p.m., just 15 minutes after the injuries.
They say Shanquella didn't die from no alcohol poisoning. They say she had been beating her neck. He broke out in a sweat, and he came out of his shirt. He was sweating so bad, it's like it was eating him up.
Salamandra Robinson became ill and experienced symptoms of sleepiness, anxiety, and depression, and other forms of severe mental distress as a result of learning of her daughter's untimely death. So I've linked my resource that I'm about to talk about with you down below, so check out the full article. I thought it was really well done. But here is a picture of what it would look like with the damage done to Shanquella's body. So if you take a look at the photo, you can actually see where it's purple, where the damage was actually done, allegedly, on Shanquella's body. So the autopsy here would say that it was the atlas that had been damaged. And you can see here where that would be. Now, I am not a doctor, so this is all very public information, but from what I got, the atlas is the first cervical vertebrae at the top of the spine, just below the skull. It supports the skull and works with the axis to allow head movement. See the axis there below? The atlas sits below the skull and right above the axis. The kind of injury that Shanquella sustained strongly suggests extreme force, possibly from being slammed, dropped, or struck. It's completely consistent with a violent cause of death and definitely not alcohol poisoning. And upon my research, it's said that she was basically, allegedly, decapitated within her body. That's how bad the damage was. Now, the same link with these images of what had been done to the back of her head that I posted below provides footage that went around surfacing Shanquella and the morning that she was jumped. What I will show you is how Dejanay behaved once she got Shanquella on the ground. Remember, Shanquella was not prepared for this, and she was nude, and they say, according to her mother allegedly, Salamandra said that Shanquella did not sleep with clothes. So it's believed that maybe Shanquella had just woken up and had essentially walked in unprepared. So that's why she, didn't have her clothes and her hair was down, and she somehow walked into this and did not put up a fight. So that was the end of this whole video that ended up coming out online, where Dejanay is clapping for herself because she has a defenseless and innocent person that did not expect this to happen on the ground. An absolute coward, falling over the chair, clapping for herself like she defeated Goliath. Midway the fight, she was wearing like a shower cap, and she was going so hard on the victim that wasn't fighting back that the shower cap actually falls and just sits on her face. And she just looks completely stupid, swinging blind on someone who was refusing to participate in the fight in the first place. It was just sickening. So I'll briefly explain the context of this video that was released, because again, I am not going to show that. But Dejanay, if it's true to be her, the lawsuit says it's her, it sure looked like her, goes after Shanquella physically. So essentially, she's kind of reaching, and Shanquella puts her arms up and ducks and turns away. Shanquella turns away to get out of the situation. Shanquella is turned completely away from Dejanay and begins to step away from her to get out of the situation. It's obvious. Dejanay's shower cap comes completely over Dejanay's face. And so Dejanay blindly and with force is hitting the back of Shanquella's neck, open hand and very hard, because Shanquella is faced away from Dejanay to get away. So that's how she starts slamming on the back of Shanquella's neck. Now remember, Dejanay has this like pink shower cap over her face. So she can't see, in my opinion, what's going on. I mean, unless she could see through it, but it sure didn't look like she could see at all. So Dejanay appears to wrap her arms closely and with force around Shanquella's neck. Remember, she's blindly coming at Shanquella. Shanquella's trying to get away, and she's just reaching and hitting. So she grabs Shanquella and wraps her arms around her neck. She jerks Shanquella around to the floor. Then Dejanay tears the shower cap off, almost like it angered her more that she might have been getting filmed and cheered on by all these people, and that stupid shower cap comes over her head. So she's just like mad. She's like monstrous. She just like tears this thing off and throws it on the floor. In the meantime, Shanquella had completely spun like a rag doll once before she hits the floor, and she's sitting upright on the floor with her legs in front of her. During this time, Shanquella's hair that was down was flipped over her face, and her neck is supporting her head as she's just sitting there like so. Dejanay slams her fists a few times in the back of Shanquella's neck. A few aggressive slaps in the area of where Shanquella's face is, and that's where she was so worked up, Dejanay, that she ends up literally stumbling backward and nearly falls over a chair before she catches herself and starts jumping and hopping and bouncing up and down and clapping, saying, "Get up, bro, get up." Two people are filming. One's for sure a female because the hands, they had nails done. And then there's another, whoever was filming the clap that went viral online. And a man can be heard saying, "At least fight back or something," to Shanquella. Now, people say that in the video, Shanquella says no, like she's not going to fight back or she can't fight back. But in the end of the clip before it cuts out, Shanquella's hair, you could see it, it's kind of like slightly back up out of her face, and she is moving her head up. It appears that she is favoring her face, though. Then the clip cuts out. Now, the clip that I saw that went surfacing on the internet, that's linked below, is only 13 seconds. And again, according to the lawsuit, this fight went on for some time, so like several minutes. So what happened moments before and in the hours after the video clip is a mystery, because everyone there has decided to unite under some kind of pact of secrecy to not come out and tell anybody what really happened that morning. They've all decided to keep quiet together. The only thing they've offered is their condolences to her mother, at least the two, and that she died from alcohol poisoning. Additionally, it's alleged that there could have been another person that went in on this after the clip ended, that maybe somebody else got physical with Shanquella and ended it all. And I have to wonder if that is why the entire group have remained silent, because it wasn't maybe just Dejanay. I mean, we already know that at least Dejanay allegedly jumped her. There's no mystery there. The video is public. But what I saw was that Shanquella was still moving in the clip. And that, again, I'm not a doctor. That doesn't really mean anything, but she was still alive in the video when it ended. So I'm just thinking, as somebody that is an unprofessional, I personally think that there was at least people that went in on it. And I think that there's a reason why 6 people won't talk. Because if it was just one and 5 others were going down for that, you would think that somebody would say, you know what, we were homies, but things changed. I was there, but I'm not going down for this. 6 people want to keep quiet and have the back of Dejanay. This doesn't feel right. It doesn't seem right. And the clip, the way that it ended with Shanquella moving her hair and lifting her head. And I mean, it's really fast. It feels weird. What happened to Shanquella? What's the real story here? Because even her best friend Khalil sat back and let this happen. He put her there. These were his people. She didn't really know them, but she knew him and he knew them. So was it something to do with unacceptance in this group? Did he just mesh the wrong people? What happened? So here's another document that I found with some statements from witnesses of the group in the villa. Now, bear in mind that she was pronounced deceased after 5 p.m. October 29th of 2022. Then the autopsy was done and they said, no, she passed away by 3 p.m. So the administrator here that was willing to give a statement is very brief. Really, all he says in this statement is that the crime of Shanquella getting beat was definitely early in the morning. He says between 7 and 8:30, and he identifies how he knows that in the villa, how early this fight happened. And we know that Shanquella was nude because allegedly, according to Salamandra, her mother, that's how Shanquella slept. So early that morning, it seems to me that she might have been called into the room and did not know what she was walking into, and that this whole thing went down very early in the morning. This is a second witness statement, and they get into some details on their experience with the group's vibe and just how Shanquella did not seem to fit in. He was a witness to their dinner. The night before, he said, minutes later, they all sit at a table and begin to drink a lot, and that's when I meet Miss Shanquella, who is the last one to approach the table to celebrate. Noticing her strange attitude, she seemed to not fit in with the others. When I introduced myself, she did not greet me or smile. She was indifferent, nothing to do with the atmosphere of the celebration. She was out of place at that party. The day that Shanquella died, he actually mentioned that he wanted to give one of the guests a hug. Everything's blanked out, but he said, I talked to her and I gave her my condolences. She thanked me and told me that they had talked to her friend's mother, Shanquella's mother, and mentioned that this was so fast to lose her in an instant for having too much alcohol. Guys, notice they keep pushing the alcohol card. I asked her if I could give her a hug, to which she said yes, and she gave me a very indifferent hug, very cold. I saw a very sad guest, a skinny girl, and saw that she was in pain. I left that area and stayed outside the main entrance to give them space to mourn and grieve, but minutes later I heard laughter. And at the end of his statement, he actually mentions, you know, they kind of played the system. They were trying to get some information from him, saying they needed to go eat because, you know, their friend died and they hadn't eaten all day. And essentially, he said they had manipulated him with information that was provided on what happened so they could get out of that situation and leave the country as soon as possible. So even the night before was said to be a little odd, according to a witness statement. Even though Shanquella had called her mom and seemed like she was really excited about dinner, and she had posted on social media what they were eating, you could see the video surfacing that she seemed like she was having a good time.
One.
Winter, come on now.
David, you be working.
Deja, we know you weren't working on upper body when you was working out. Come on, let me see what you got, Winter.
3.
Winter, what is that?
I'm gonna plank.
What a card, man. These people here.
Come on, Lisa.
It did not seem she was having a good time at all. So we have a video, we have autopsy reports that say she was pretty banged up. It was not alcohol poisoning, despite the differences in the results. Despite Mexico issuing an arrest warrant and requesting extradition for Dejanay, the United States has not arrested her. Extradition is a legal process and it's not automatic. Just because Mexico asks doesn't mean that the US automatically hands someone over. Totally ridiculous. I get it. I don't make the rules. I'm just telling you what, the facts are. The U.S. Department of Justice, DOJ, has to review the evidence and determine if it meets the standard. For extradition to happen, the alleged crime must be considered a crime in both countries. There may be legal debates over the exact charge Mexico is pursuing, likely femicide, a crime specific to Mexican law, and whether it matches U.S. equivalent like homicide. The U.S. tends to move very cautiously when extraditing its own citizens. So in April of 2023, the DOJ said that federal prosecutors did not find enough evidence to file charges in the U.S. after reviewing the case, which has led to no arrest. So, as we know, Shanquella's mother, Salamandra, has filed in the U.S. in North Carolina. She is suing the Cabo 6, and 4 out of 6 have responded. And that just happened. It's March of 2025, and this just happened by March of 2025. 4 defendants, Alyssa, Winter, Malik, and Khalil, filed motions to dismiss the lawsuit here in the U.S. Their primary argument is that the case should be in Mexico, because that is where the incident occurred, asserting that the Mexican courts are better positioned to handle the matter due to the location of evidence and witnesses. And let's just be so for real right now. Biased opinion here, this is very selfish of these people. The thing is, if it gets handled here in the U.S., if a U.S. jury sides with Shanquella's mother, these 4 people could be ordered to pay a lot of money. In the U.S., trials are publicized and media coverage is intense, and juries decide your fate. By dragging the case out and arguing jurisdiction, it seems like they're just buying time. The longer that things are delayed, the more they hope people will forget, that media attention fades, and it has, guys. Let's be honest, it's not really covered anymore. Or that the family just give up and they run out of resources to continue the fight.
She didn't deserve to die like that, And you're going to take her away from her family, away from out the country to do her harm like that.
Now, legally, these people are like arguing that Mexico has jurisdiction, but underneath, it looks like a lot of trying to dodge consequences in a country where justice would hit very, very hard. And this is a really good choice, in my opinion, for the Robinsons to come forward and say, we're not going to sit. We're not sitting ducks. We're not going to wait for extraditions on y'all to live your lives. And I mean, it can take decades for an extradition to happen. So where these Cabo 6 people are now, this is a pretty safe place to be for now, because they don't have to be held accountable for a very long time, if at all. You guys see what we're working with here? They're able to just live as normal as possible. They can just do what they want, when they want, how they want, with who they want, where they want. Their life is theirs. They still have it to live, and they are living it. They could have decades totally free and the case grow cold. And it should be noted, at some point, part of the Cabo 6 was out on the streets in North Carolina, like having a cocktail at a bar. And allegedly people didn't like that, and there was a fight. Shanquella's good name was defended. And so what I have heard since that time is that these people have like changed their phone numbers, and they've been moving around, and they're just trying to, go under, kind of duck under. But at one point, some of these girls thought they were good enough to get out on the streets, and people were like, get back where you belong. Who do you think you are? Shanquella's gone. So in response to the 4 people of the Cabo 6 that said, no, we want this in Mexico, Salamandra Robinson's legal team contends that the case should proceed in North Carolina, emphasizing that all parties involved are American citizens and that the key evidence is located in the United States. They argue that the U.S. legal system is appropriate for addressing the claims despite the incident taking place abroad.
Shanquella she was a very loving person. I guess I could say I was kind of like her babysitter. Because school opened, her mother had to be at work so early in the morning. She would always drop off at my house, and she'd stay there at the time to go to school. And she was just go-getter. That's what Shanquella was. And all the kids just loved her to death. But what I would like to say today is to the 6 that was with her. My plea, if you're watching this, or if you'll be watching this, my plea is to you. And I'm saying to you, I'm standing first, y'all. I'm standing for God. That's who I believe in. I'm standing for Him on behalf of the Robinson family. And I would like to say to those 6, no matter where you go, you're not going to be able to run from this situation. And what God would have me to say to you all today, He is a God of a second chance. And it's time for each one of you to come forth for the part that you played in. Because none of you could be friends, because if you were friends, you would not have done this. So it's time for you to step forward and take your part in this situation. See, because man is not a second chance man. And God will forgive. And you got to come out. No matter what lawyer you get, you will never be able to pay him to get you off. So it's time now. It's just like a ball game. It's 3 strikes. So y'all have had 2 strikes. And that 3rd strike, it means you're out. And when God takes control, can't nobody help you. No matter who it is, your mother, your father, or anyone can help you. And it's just sad that people, I don't understand how they haven't done anything. I'm like Miss Robinson. When they sent the film to me, and by the way, I had the privilege, I'm a pastor, and I had a privilege to pastor Shanquella for over a year and a half. And I enjoyed her being under my leadership. She was always there, always loving, always cutting up. She doing what Shanquella do. But to the 6, can't no lawyer help you. I promise you, no matter what you're paying. Because the Bible said that vengeance is mine. And God promised, and I believe in Him. He said, vengeance is mine, and he said, I will make them pay. So to the Robinson family, keep your head up. Remember Shanquella as she was, and I know that nothing we can do is going to bring Shanquella back. And I believe if God would just give us the opportunity to just speak to Shanquella, Shanquella will tell y'all, I'm all right now. I don't want to come back to this old mean world. She wouldn't want to come back here because we're still back here fighting to try to stay alive, to try to love one another, try to be kind to one another. And still, it's hard. But young people, say to yourself, don't worry about the other ones, but don't say to yourself, I'm going forward now. I'm going to take responsibility for the part that I played. Because this was a choice. This wasn't a mistake y'all made. It was a choice. And when you make choices in life, there's a consequence behind every choice that you make. And it might take a long time, but God is not going to let you get by. So the sooner you come forward, the sooner you take your part in it, the sooner you can go on with your life. Because no matter what, you didn't have the right. You had no right. You didn't have the right to take a life, no matter what the situation was. So we just pray. We'll keep praying to God. And even though it look like man is failing y'all right now, Monty, God is not. He got your back, and he's going to make everything all right.
Absolutely love that clip. It gave me the chills. Amen. And I'll simply close out with this. This isn't right. And nobody that loses their life unjustly matters less than someone else. Not based on color, age, gender. And it really bothered me in the press conference to hear that Salamandra was warned to not trust the FBI and that she feels that the message has come true. Salamandra and Bernard Robinson deserve to have closure.
I'm just heartbroken, man. You know, I can't even be a granddaddy. Can't even walk down the aisle, man. Can't even hear a voice. Can't even say daddy. Mom, you know, can't even say daddy. Can't even hear say grandma. You know, y'all just don't know. Y'all just don't know what this has done to me. Just don't know, man. You just don't know. Just don't know. Just don't know. You know, I thought she'll be burying me. Not me burying her.
And I just wonder how empty the years that go by continue to feel for them, knowing that there's been no accountability. And to wonder the little things like, you know, what would Shanquella's hairstyle look like today? What's in fashion? What would she have been doing to help other people in her salon? And would she have been getting married by now? You know, would we be planning a wedding right now or opening a Christmas box with a little stick that says you're gonna be grandparents? You know, just imagine for them how often they look at a cell phone and they wonder if a call is gonna come in that says, you know what, we're moving on the case. It's totally not right what's going on. So pray, guys, pray over this family and pray for the loved ones and pray for Shanquella's name. Pray that these people get locked up, all of them. And I have to wonder about the boyfriend too. I don't know much about the guy that witnessed it on the phone that was, you know, enabling Dejanay, but I think he needs to be held accountable too, like fully. Anybody that was able to speak and did not call authorities and witness this should go down fully for this crime, in my opinion. What are your guys' thoughts? Thank you guys so much for tuning in. It was good to see you again. I'm going to go away for a while because I'm in the middle of school. Most of you probably remember that I am getting my psychology degree, so stay blessed, respect your spouses, hug your kids, and be good to yourselves. I'm Chelsea J. Stay blessed.